I'm really happy to be here, and so are the cats. We have lots of cats. There's a couple dogs, a mouse, and a bird, just so you have your animal metrics up front. You might have noticed this cat has a very good skeptical attitude, which is great because this cat is an Agile tester. You can tell. There's an early prototype of the IMS pet food here, and this cat is not even waiting until the mock-ups are ready. He's got a pure printout and is not too impressed because we're lacking all menus and navigation, so this cat's going to get on it and report some bugs. I consider myself a rescue human. I don't come from a math, science, or computer science type degree or background, so I've kind of accidentally ended up here. So why not test like a dog? Why is this talk not about dogs? Since dogs are so awesome and they're happy and they love us so much and they run up to us and they're trusting and we just think they think we're great. And you can even hurt a dog and it will come back over and over again and still trust you. Dogs have pack hierarchy, which is well enforced, and they know who the alpha is and they submit to the alpha. So that's not always ideal for testing for a couple reasons. We want trust to be based on merit, not perceived importance. So it's not that we're talking bad about dogs because they're great. This is mostly about why cats inspire me in testing, not that there aren't lessons to learn from dogs and other animals. I put a reference here, not because this is a reference, but to remind me that I'm going to be talking about a lot of cat science here and animal behavior studies. There's a list of references to all the studies and books on the slides, and they're up on SlideShare. So you can read them, and you can come complain to me that I've quoted them wrong or say you like the study, whatever. It's just kind of one of my hobbies. So if you see a reference, it's because I'm talking about something there's a reference to. The first area where cats have inspired me is in survival, which is really important to me. I feel like without cat wisdom, testers are not even surviving in Agile companies at all. We have doubters and detractors everywhere. Even in the larger Agile community, there are people who believe we don't need any testers. So how can we survive in any circumstances at all? Once you know you can survive, you smell less of fear and desperation, which is a survival advantage in all circumstances. How can we learn about hunting? How can we be better hunters? Cats are amazing murder machines. They look so small. You have no idea how dangerous they are. There may be fewer testers than in the past, on a team, in a company, and that makes agility more important. So how can we be efficient, confident hunters like cats are, no matter what's happening out in the field? Communication. So I'm going to tell you how cats are manipulating you. Cats are hypnotizing us to do their bidding. We are their slaves, and we don't even know it. So cat science can teach us how can we communicate for each individual relationship to get a better result. And then the last thing I want to talk about is how we can rest completely and not burn out. We have to understand how the territory and the reward system impacts outcomes for both cats and humans, and what can we do about it with what control we have. So the first area is how can we survive with dignity as testers? Because indecision and desperation are dangerous, we have to know what we're good at. Skills improve with practice. Confidence improves with practice. One thing cats are amazing at that I'd like to see testers get amazing at is they are comfortable anywhere, and it doesn't matter for how long. If they're just welcome for a snack, if they're welcome for a nap and a sunbeam temporarily, if they're in a cat fostering situation, if they're in a shelter, or if they're in a forever home, they're comfortable wherever they are. And cats originally started getting fed by human beings by mousing in stores and on ships. And because cats were so useful, humans kept them around and they fed them. So I would say the number one survival tip I have is be useful. But if you can't be useful, can you at least be entertaining and comforting? Because that's half the reason why cats are in our homes today. Cats have a bad reputation. Are they trying to kill you? When you're walking down the stairs, they're trying to trip you. Do they really want you to die? Do they have a vendetta against your glassware when they knock them off the counter? Are they trying to murder your furniture because they want to kill you? I've heard you can't train them, can't trust them. Cats are uncaring. All these myths about cats. Cats are not plotting to kill you. It may be funny to joke about it, but when they are wrapping themselves around your legs, what they're trying to do is let the outside world know that you are already owned by a cat. So there's no need for you to feed another cat because they've no position open here, pretty much. Cats do better when they're left alone for short periods of time, which is excellent. And I think as long as cats have what they need, you can leave them for a whole weekend. As testers, we need to be able to be trusted to be left alone because sometimes there's nothing you can do. Sometimes there's nothing to test yet. So what can we do with that time to make sure that people understand we're still working on behalf of the team, whether or not there's something in our hands to test at the moment? Like cats, testers have a bit of a reputation. It's been said that we just need to explain better, perhaps a little rebranding. You know, if we just define things about 8,000 times on the internet, surely our problems will go away. There's the reputation people only test until they move on, do something better. Oh, you're a failed programmer, you weren't good enough at it, so, you're a tester. Sometimes that's only true because people can't survive any other way. They have to become a programmer or they don't make it. Sometimes it's true because that's the top of their salary. No matter how much they learn as a tester, they're never going to earn more than that because it's not as valued by someone else. I don't believe it's our responsibility to explain the value of testing to doubters and detractors. What cats do when someone doesn't like cats is they generally climb on that person's lap and start purring. And if the person doesn't pet them, then they move on to the next lap, which I think is a great strategy. And they're like, oh, well, that sucked. And then they're on. They have their own agenda. I don't think we need to beg people to like us or be overly attached. Show them what we do. If they like it, great. And if they don't, moving on. You might have heard curiosity killed the cat. It's absolutely essential for everyone doing testing. It doesn't matter what the role is. Curiosity, to me, is the key thing. So the real saying is, if curiosity killed the cat, then satisfaction brought it back. If you really don't care why something happens, then learning stops. Why do cats go into everything new you ever bring into the house? Why do testers ask so many questions? Abundant curiosity is endlessly useful for learning about systems and for understanding what's changing in environments. So if you want to test like a cat, you need curiosity when testing, but have a purpose in asking. What are you going to do with the information? Do you follow through on it? Satisfaction is in you knowing, but even better is if you bring something useful back to your team. One thing I've been working on is doing a little bit more reconnaissance before I ask questions. So like just 5 minutes searching, seeing if I can find out something no one else knows. But if you can't let fear of asking override your curiosity. So do your due diligence, but if you don't find out, you cannot let risking looking stupid or showing what you don't know stop you from asking. Ask anyways, because curiosity's first. So how do these solitary creatures survive in the wild, these feral cats? You might have heard, well, cats are just solo. They don't team up together. But that's not true. Feral cats form loose-knit communities, and they do that for a reason, because they can't eat or drink safely without protecting one another from predators. How can we watch for the safety of other testers? We don't have as many in one company anymore. I think part of what we can do is be there when there's a need. In times of danger, how can you bond with your team or other testers? Eating together, testing together, and sharing common experiences are how feral cats bond. It's how dogs bond. It's how humans bond. And all of these can help us to bond both with our team and with other testers. If you're an in-house tester and your risks are too much comfort and safety, perhaps not much activity, how can you add more adventure? Get outside and meet some more customers. Go to a meetup for an entire other industry. See how they test. What can we learn from them? Can you pair with a developer or sit in with a support or on a sales call? You need to add adventure in your life. You're getting detached from the wilds out there. You might be losing your edge. You need to bring it back. So in 2009, I had been working at this company I love for 10 years. My team won an award, and then my entire team got laid off. And I was just shocked. Didn't make sense to me. And I went to this small conference, and I told a friend of mine, I've talked to the people over at Microsoft. I know what it's like at Seattle. They don't care about testers. The only thing they care about is your coding ability and nothing else. You don't even have to know how to test. You can be an absolute idiot, and if you pass their coding test, it's fine. They don't care. It's just like that everywhere. And my friend Chris said, Lanette, testing is not like that everywhere. And I listened to him, and I'm glad I listened to him, because I've worked at a lot of places since then, and testing really is not like that everywhere. Testing is different absolutely everywhere you do testing. Even if you're the only person testing at your entire company, you're here to learn from others, and that's a good sign. Talk to them and find out how testing's different elsewhere so that you don't start to forget that there isn't just one way to do this. There's many, many ways to do this. There's so many testers here you can take encouragement and inspiration from who can help you pass these problems. They can help you survive. They can help you make it to that next step. And we're all here to help you survive. So don't forget about your community. But don't just tell people about good testing because they don't listen. Show them good testing. Be of value on your team any way you can, not just with testing. But cats don't beg or desperately want others to like them. And that's why you should test like a cat. Be who you are, be welcoming, but don't feel like you need to imitate someone else or be someone else to have success. At the same time, keeping current with your hunting skills, growing your skills, is going to make it easier to survive with dignity because you're going to have more options to work where your talent is celebrated. Each time you help someone else find a job, you help them in a survival situation, you're adding one drop into the karma bucket. Look for chances to do that. You're going to feel so much more comfortable asking for help when you need it, and you will need it. I've seen so many more people laid off who quit than ever retire. Think about how many retirements you've seen versus how many people have left or been laid off. We need this. We need to support each other in survival. We also need more than mentors, especially those of us in marginalized groups. We need advocates. We need you to gossip about the good things. What special skill does that person have that you can gossip behind their back? They need you to gossip about the positives because so much of the work we do is not being seen. Be that person. Not a mentor, but an advocate, a friend, and a companion in survival who's got the back of other testers. So in surviving, sometimes conflict comes up. And I think cats can teach us some amazing things about conflict. Now, when you see cats fight, you might think, oh, there's all this hissing, there's a lot of biting and scratching, they puff up, but they do some kind of amazing things. One thing they do sometimes is they'll go around the edge of a territory slowly and avoid the conflict altogether. cats are not at the top of the food chain. Testers are not at the top of the food chain. You don't want to pick a fight with animals you can't survive against. Sometimes going around the edge and avoiding the conflict is your best path. The second thing cats do is there may be a lot of noise and hissing, but you'll see oftentimes, most of the time, one of the cats will turn around and saunter off very slowly to show, okay, I'm giving you some space now, buddy. And then other times they run away. The only last case scenario is when they fight, and then they make a decision quickly, and it's as vicious as possible. They're going to try and finish it. I want to tell you about the first time a developer shouted at me. I was working on a bug, and this bug had gone back and forth a couple times. And so I sent the developer a message, said, hey, it looks like we're having trouble getting on the same page here. When you have a minute, can I come show you this bug? So he had called me up in my office and was just shouting and shouting. I'm seriously like a minute tirade of just screaming out of the blue. I didn't really know what to say. It's the first time it ever happened. So he's shouting and shouting. Finally, he stopped, and I said, okay, hung up the phone. I had no other response. Just okay was it. So I walked out to the parking lot, and I was upset, and I'm wandering around. Now, you might think I could never work with that developer again. That's not true. We both had some space to retreat. He apologized. We set a boundary. I understood this problem is not about me. It isn't. Someone else took over the bug, and we found a resolution. But the important thing to do when you're handling conflict is to leave with dignity. Get out of there. You're not going to do any good in the moment when someone's upset and screaming. Retreat and allow mistakes. People aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. I'll make mistakes. We all do. Peacemakers aren't those who apologize needlessly. They aren't people who grovel. They aren't doormats. They're those who negotiate towards a mutually acceptable compromise that works long-term for all parties. So think about how you can allow in a conflict a safe retreat without pursuit. You don't have to associate with bullies, and you don't need to be one. There are some cats who can never be around other cats and never be around other animals. They don't do well in the wild, and they don't do well in shelters. So make sure you're not one of those. Another thing we can do is to avoid punishment, because punishing directly, even spraying cats, that causes side effects. It doesn't cause desired results. With cats and dogs and humans, trying to redirect to the behavior you want and reward what you do want is always more effective than punishment. And that's because threats to territory and status and trust and reputation reduce productivity. And those are also what cause conflicts in cats. You may have heard about this nihilism. Nihilism is the philosophy that life has no inherent value or meaning. And you might have heard of testing nihilism, which is maybe said as testing is dead. Crazy thing about testing, like cats, it has 9 lives. It just keeps landing on its feet time and time again. It may be changing a little bit, but have you seen how many people are here? Agile testing days this week? It's not dead. Pretty lively for a zombie. So if you believe testing's dying or you want to argue against it, it serves an agenda for someone else. It was Nietzsche and not Kanye who first said, "That which does not kill us will make us stronger." But sometimes what someone else wants on their team doesn't really concern me. There may be some cases where they don't want testers. That's not really my business. But like a cat, we need to know that external validation doesn't define your value. Someone not seeing value in testing has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. So I love this question, and I like these cats' response to it. Can you prove your value as a cat? Nah, I'm going to pass. That's just a no. A cat's wise enough not to try and know this is a trap. I've heard, we just have to explain better. We need to show it. Oh, if we all code, our problems are going to go away. If we all automate and then we all have this certificate, and the list of these miracle silver bullet solutions goes on and on and on and on. Maybe we aren't the problem. How likely are we to teach someone who doesn't know they have a problem that they do? Very unlikely. Cats don't multitask. That's because they're smart. They're smarter than we are. Well, let's be comfortable. Cats are also very comfortable not even doing one task. And that's amazing. That's something we could learn from. So this cat here is scratching the sofa, and it may seem like malice. Is this cat trying to destroy the furniture, intimidate the owner? What's going on here? Cats do not have malice. Their claws continuously grow, and they must sharpen them for basic survival and grooming. Cats simply have their own agenda. They aren't trying to please us. They aren't trying to upset us. They are just being maximum cat. I have a cat, Stardust, and she's very food motivated. And I bought this awesome robot to feed her so she wouldn't bother me in the morning. Well, wouldn't you believe it? She's an excellent penetration tester, and the next morning there was no food. She had managed to get her paw up there and then ram her body against the thing and just distribute all the kibble. It took 3 different cat feeders to finally get a Stardust-proof type of a cat robot feeder. And I could just see her the time that it had a bug and it went the opposite on the timer, and it just distributed all the kibble in 1 hour for the whole weekend. I can just imagine her like it's a jackpot lottery with kibble coming out. She's like, yeah, baby, big money. So cats are good at finding loopholes. If your developers are doing their coding, they're also supposed to be doing all the testing. I've heard this. We don't need testers because we're going to build quality in. This is a solution to everything. Which, great. I want quality built in. I want unit tests. I want my developers helping me with a testing framework. I want them to help me figure out if I could be making better automation. But what happens to testing integration and usability and performance and security and everything else that other people were doing this whole time? If only functional testing is important, then we're missing out a lot. We're missing a lot of coverage there. Often tests that are written by developers will prove, I as a developer have not broken anything that I know of in this small area. And they don't prove this new thing actually works, because that's really hard to do any validation or broader testing and make it stable. So cats can survive well when they're solitary, and that's something that I'm inspired by. They don't necessarily need other cats. And we can learn from that when we may be the only tester on a team or on an entire company. I took this job where I was the first tester that ever worked at a company, and I was 1 tester, 17 developers, 6 to 7 projects at a time. After a couple months, I realized I'm only reacting to the biggest fire of the day. I'm not going to survive here. I can't. I'm losing it. I have no strategy at all. I'm not a tester I want to be. This job's impossible. What can I possibly do here? And so I created something I like to call a survival schedule. A survival schedule for me was, before lunch, I work on this project. After lunch, I work on this project. And I just mapped it out each day of the week. And then if you had an emergency, you could bump a project, but then you lost your next slot. Before long, what I ended up with was developers who knew when their code was going to be tested, and we would meet online, and we would just rev through before they checked in the code and test together. We would fix like 7, sometimes 15 bugs in 1 hour. Whereas before, I'm writing all these tickets, I'm getting frustrated, it's just like, what's the biggest emergency? Now we were proactively making the quality better together. So I also, on that job, although it was hard, I got to write production code for the first time. Never would have happened at a company with more formal processes. And I also got to work on my first CI system, never had before. So be a tester you're proud to be, but survive like a cat would. Don't be overly concerned about defending the hierarchy or overly rigid about your role. That's part of how you can survive in different settings. So just to summarize how to survive like a cat, you aren't at the top of the hierarchy. You have to put your survival first. No one else is going to do it. Your survival comes before your job. Here's to you enjoying all of your 9 lives in testing. So how can we hunt the best we possibly can like cats do? Preparation's key with cats. They also have equipment to be fantastic hunters, some of the best. They practice many times a day, every day. I started this past year, I took a certificate in JavaScript at a university. And when I started that, I heard from many people, you're not a tester anymore. Why are you taking this JavaScript? You're leaving testing. You're going to become a developer now. And I've also heard both, am I not a real tester now, but I'm also not a real developer. So I'm just not a real anything, really, except a real cat lady. But the practicing with JavaScript is not just to be a developer. It's making me a better tester. I'm using it in my testing. I mean, how am I supposed to test all this stuff and be better at it if I don't understand what's going on under the hood? So that's part of practicing for me, to be a better hunter. It doesn't mean I am a real tester and I am a real developer. Both, not one or the other. Cats can see amazingly in the dark, 6 times better than human beings. They also have a whole visual spectrum we can't see. They can see where their prey's been using a UV spectrum. So think about your vision. How do you know what bugs are impacting your customers? How can we use cat vision? One thing that helps is if we understand how cats hunt. Cats first start scanning the entire savanna for motion. They're not looking for detail. They're just looking for motion. Some emotion is like which bugs were found last week? Where were they found? Who did they impact? So focusing on technical motion is key for identifying targets. I made a list here. How can we view technical motion? And there's all kinds of ways. But sometimes the code itself, scripts, more logging, things that give us testability can give us cat vision so we can see better. Then what cats do is they patiently wait. They view their prey. And you may have seen cats do the little wiggle. They're literally calibrating their pounce. So when they decide to take action, cats don't wait at all. They pounce, and they have solo focus on that prey until it's either fully captured or the opportunity's over. And that's why they're so effective at hunting, because they have the ability to change their focus from the whole entire savanna down to one little mouse as quickly as possible. And that will help us. We have to adapt quickly between situations where we have less and more information. And that, to me, is Agile testing in a nutshell, is the ability to adapt to the situation more quickly than we have been in the past. Cats have a self-awareness tool. Their whiskers, their entire life, will grow or shrink to help them know if they can fit into small spaces. That helps them with escape, it helps them with survival, it helps them with hunting. I have a special knack. I love to work on corruption and crashes. There's no real reason for it, I just really like it. And it's kind of like cats knocking glasses off a table. It's for science, but it's just kind of for fun. It's not really. But think about, what special skills do you have that can help you to stand out? And what can you teach someone else? Having self-awareness of your skills, being able to bring them to others, can help you be a better tester. Cats have more dexterity in their claws than we have at the end of our fingertips, so they can very easily tell the status of their prey. They can retract their claws and extend them much more deeply. They can hold prey in place. It's their best form of defense, allowing fight or flight. You're already testing like a cat by being here, sharpening your claws, participating in the community. How do you know when to dig in deep to an issue, when to hold it still, and come back to it later? You might have heard cats are nocturnal. I just told you they have this amazing eyesight in the dark. That's not true. They're crepuscular. Being crepuscular gives cats an advantage. Crepuscular means they're active at dusk and dawn. There's something special about those transition periods. The animals who were up all day are tired. They can't see as well. In the morning, the animals that were up all night are tired, and they can't see as well as the cats. Think about how can you optimize your work and rest cycles based on when you're likely to have bugs. When do you have builds? When do you have check-ins? When do you have people there to help you? Consider what are your natural rhythms, energy bursts, and strategic breaks you can take. No one has their best day ever. Cats are smarter than we do because they do not lament a failed hunt. They move on. Oh, well, hunted more yesterday, napped more today. They keep trying with the same confidence. This cute little 5-pound angel is the deadliest hunter on earth. That's a black-footed cat from Africa. They have the highest kill rate of all cats. 60%. They can walk up to 20 miles, which I didn't convert to kilometers, sorry, Americanism, per night. And the females are the most dangerous. And the mothers, the most dangerous of all. You don't know what a dangerous cat looks like. Similarly, you don't know what a good tester looks like. You don't know what a good developer looks like. We all bring unique skills, and some of those skills are better or less suited to an environment. The best tester isn't the person who reports the most bugs. The best tester is not the person who gets the most bugs fixed. The best tester is the person who helps the team deliver the most value to customers. And that has not much to do with bugs at all. Can you hunt too much? Even well-fed house cats will hunt, and some of them are absolute murdering machines. They kill all the time, just for fun. They're not even hungry. No matter how much you focus on other activities, if there's testers, you'll have bugs. It's just how it is. Just like cats will decimate the local bird wildlife if they're out, testers got to write bugs. But what can we do to appreciate it? How can others encourage us to do more than just finding bugs? Because that's an area where we have so much opportunity to nurture and to add more value. I started a contract at one coffee company, and I found these really severe bugs. One, you could never launch the application again if you did this thing, and I was so proud. I'm like, oh, I'm such a good tester. Give me a gold star on my chart. I've done so good at this job. They're really going to like me. No, they did not care about these bugs at all. I had hunted in the wrong territory. I was killing the songbirds. They weren't impressed, and I asked them, well, what kind of bugs do you want me to find? They said, well, all we care about is the data throughput. Why are you beating up this poor application? What did it ever do to you? And so we finally got on the right page, but don't hunt too much, and please be careful that what you're hunting is applicable to your team. Cats kill and eat about 9 times a day, so they're very consistent, and that's part of why they're great hunters. When dogs bring you something, it's because they think you're great. When cats leave you their kill, it's because they think you're incompetent and a terrible hunter, and they're really afraid you might die if they don't feed you. Are we leaving a grizzly dead mouse on a developer's door? And we might be a little more excited about it than they are. It's not always a good thing. Think about how are we helping others hunt? And are we dropping it off saying, oh, you incompetent developer, you probably can't find this bug, but I'm super smart, here you go. We need to do more than drop off a bug at their door. How can we share findings together? How can we inspire new ideas? How can we bring things that aren't killing the spirit of our team? Besides bugs, what are we looking for? We are trying to uncloak parts of the product, which may work in unintended ways. We also have to remember that thoughtful suggestions and accolades are important findings. Bugs aren't the only important thing. There's a lot of small times we can give encouragement that would be a present that somebody would want and not a grisly pile of bugs. So think about, are we leaving presents based on what they would want or based on what we would want? So to summarize, how can we hunt like a cat? We're going to use cat vision, broadly scan for technical motion, using all the tools that we have. When we find a problem, we're going to zoom in, we're going to calibrate, we're going to attack. And we're going to focus just on that until it's dead or the opportunity's passed. So cats in the wild, they don't always catch their prey, but they carry on with the same confidence, which is an extreme amount of confidence at all times. Hunt with the confidence of a cat that you are just going to slay it every time. They also transition between relaxed and bursts of activity with ease. I wish I could do that better. One night, I'd been at work for hours trying to figure out this bug. It would happen, then it wouldn't happen, and I couldn't figure it out. A colleague finally drugged me away from the computer. That's it, we're going to happy hour. So I went out, had one drink with them, came back, and immediately figured it out. Now, every tester and developer you ever talk to probably has a story like this. What's the difference? The difference is, if you don't rest strategically, you don't come back with a new perspective. So that really helped. So use tools, focus around changes to improve hunting, and think about whiskers. What's your own self-awareness? How do we communicate for results? We got some amazing insight to cats in 2012. There's this book called How to Speak Cat by Stuart Weitzman. And it told us more than we ever knew about audible cat communication. And what we learned is the sound of a cat's voice, even the pitch, the volume, and how deep or not deep it was, it's not tied to the breed at all, or the size of the cat. It's entirely independent by a unique individual. In this study, the owners of the cat could identify their meows and what the meows meant, but a different owner of a different cat could only do so for their own cat. And what they basically discovered is that cats are meowing to get us to do things. And that's why we know their meaning, and other people don't, as cat owners. Have you ever felt misunderstood on a project? Sometimes you haven't learned the interspecies language yet. Other times, you're the wrong cat for the owner. Don't assume because your voice isn't heard that it's entirely wrong, or that because one person hasn't understood you that no one can. Part of what we learn from cats is allowing people to be unique. You can adapt your voice within a range. You can adapt how you speak, what you're saying, but ultimately, if someone doesn't like cats or doesn't like your unique voice, you may be unable to use it in that situation. I started at the job I have now, and it was my first time testing iOS, and I was finding these cases where these buttons didn't work, and I thought, oh, regression, easy. I would go show my other person, I'm tapping, it doesn't work. He would grab the phone and go, doop, and what do you know? Up came the thing, the button worked fine. So we're trying to figure out what's going on. Well, what we discovered is I have the smallest hands on the team, and I'm the only person who wears nail polish. The tap targets were too small. No one else knows this because they have big fingers, and they can tap right directly on the button. So we find different bugs by having more variety on the team, partly. Cats meow at us. You might think, why is that? Well, meowing's not primary cat language. Primary cat language is all these other sounds. It's body language, it's tail speaking, it's expressions. They only make about one sound per 100 hours of meowing to other cats. They meow to us because they learn they can't get our attention any other way. We can't see their expressions. We don't speak cat body language. That means if we want testers to go beyond being bug finders, we have to show we'll listen to some other form of input besides bugs. It's easy to adjust style and timing, but keep in mind some people don't like cats, so don't necessarily spend your time meowing at them. How can we complain effectively for the audience? There's two sides to communication. Part one, an audience willing to listen. Part two, and what's most important, the tone and unspoken communication that you convey, in which method at what time, and then there's the content of everything you say. And those have to match. Cat complaining works with cat owners because there's a bond that already exists, and because it's adorable. That's the main reason. I like to say humans are different, and we are so much smarter and deeper that it doesn't apply, but all of science says it does. Being likable is one of the most important factors to your perceived performance at work. Don't think for a second being nice is optional. Acting on the existing relationship is how to have effective communication. So to summarize, how can we talk like a cat? Communicate like a cat by being unafraid to use your unique voice, but experiment and learn what works in each relationship. And adapt if it stops working. Keep being experimental to try to learn what will work. Don't meow at the other cats, they're never going to feed you. And overall, more purring and less hissing helps build better relationships. Why do cats love boxes? They love them because they're comfortable. It smells like them. They can see out while feeling safe. And boxes for testers are useful too. We can use time boxes to protect focused testing. And that's a great thing. It sometimes doesn't happen otherwise. Cats don't like people behind them, which is part of the box thing, and human beings don't either. So think about how can we optimize the surroundings to support trust and safety. I consider myself the survivor of an open office plan. I am very pleased I don't have a solo open office plan now, but you may not have control about that, and that's fine. Think about where is a comfortable box you can get your most intense work done and chill in. Even if you have an open office, there's got to be some space you can make more comfortable for your most difficult, intense work. Cats, dogs, humans, and all pack animals need space and security before they can relax or be their most productive. But also consider, are you making anyone else's space uncomfortable, and how can you fix that? This is Stardust. She's the cat who's the excellent penetration tester on the cat food. She loves treats a lot. She likes to be on people's laps. She's boy crazy. If any men ever come to my house, she leaves and gets on their lap and stares at me. We got her a cat tree and put treats on the top of it. It's the only time she's ever climbed up high. She's afraid of heights. Her communication style is she's very quiet. But when I adopted her, she climbed right on my lap in the shelter and started purring, and she never left. And she still does that kind of thing. She meows so infrequently, she once got locked in a room and stayed there for a day, and even when I called her name, she wouldn't meow. Had a really hard time getting her to meow. This is Chic. Chic may be found on the top of door jambs, high up on top of the refrigerator. She meows early and often. She never shuts up. She just loves to meow. She's unafraid to climb anywhere. She doesn't care much for food, but she loves string, and she chews on cables and strings. I like to say she's a true expert in string manipulation, and an ideal teacup panther. She's a very small cat. And if cats had jobs, she'd be a lawyer. She has a lot to say all the time. And so, what are treats? What is play? It depends on the cat. We have one cat who's afraid of laser pointers. The other cat loves food. The other one doesn't care at all about food. How do you herd cats? Is it possible? I think usually the best way is to open a can of tuna and get out of the way. See what happens. So it really depends on the cat. When these two cats of mine, both black rescues, met, it seemed like a nightmare. The big cat attacked the little cat. It was horrible. I thought one of them might be injured. It seemed like it would never work. 3 weeks later, 2 baby gates, several types of food and string, and a lot of ridiculousness, these cats can coexist just fine. Changes on teams are scary. They're threats to status and territory. It's going to take some time to adapt. And it doesn't necessarily, a bad first meeting doesn't mean it's not going to work at all. Part of the reason cats are deadly hunters is because they rest a lot, 16 hours a day. Sounds awesome. Think about how can we rest. Goals should be commitments, but not just commitments to work. Commitments to when are you going to rest? When are you going to practice? When are you going to hunt and when are you going to play? These all matter. Consider rest as an integral treat for accomplishing a task. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to rest before I go on to the next thing. And it's not optional, because if you don't rest, you're not going to be a good hunter, and your survival is going to be dropping and dropping and dropping. You know how cats have a reputation for not being loving? It's not true. Cats love with loyalty. How do you know a cat loves you? They follow you room to room. They blink slowly at you. They sit on your lap and purr. They have a favorite person they prefer over everyone else. And just as many cat owners as dog owners consider their cat part of their family after living with one for as short a period of time as 1 year. How, as a tester, can you show you care? A tester sent you a gnarly pile of bugs. I think that tester likes you. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not exactly. But as testers, we can better show we care by getting involved early. We can pay attention to the method someone else communicates with us to communicate with them. Do they prefer email? Do they prefer a phone call? Do they prefer in person? What time of day do they prefer? We can try and adapt to their style. Sometimes just giving space and silence, if we can tell someone needs it, is a way to show you care and you're paying attention. Reading commit notes and code closely is sort of like following someone room to room, so you might do that. Trying to be responsive, encouraging, and uplifting, even if you're writing bugs, is so important in building a relationship with developers. Unlike cats, though, if you're wrong, admit it and apologize. Cats don't really do that, but we still should. Support your team members. If there's somebody who has expertise in an area you don't have, bring them to your developer and work together to show them that you really care about covering this area. If you work with testers or with developers who also act as testers, stay curious. The unanswered questions are worth finding answers to, and they do have answers to. I worked on a document corruption problem, and I just couldn't figure it out. It was very frustrating. A bug would happen, I could never open this document again. I kept trying to figure it out. And eventually, I got it down to one step. Here's a document, I do this one step, and it's corrupt forever. I went and talked to the developer, and what I learned is, because I followed up with them, there was a paging file system internal to the document where this certain number would trigger the next page. And there was a rounding error. And so you could never open the document again because the reference was wrong. So there's always a reason. The reason may seem confusing or random, but if we work with other people, we can understand what the reason is, and that will help us understand how to test better. Cats can teach us how to retain original thinking and independence, as well as how to survive with grace. Consider, are you really testing for everyone, every situation? How can we get out of our own headspace, out of our own workflow, and out of our own use cases? No matter what you think testing's like, what you think customers are like, keep in mind it's not the only way to work, it's not the only way to test. So if you are a tester, you have the advantage of having a different perspective and background, approaching it from a code-only perspective. At least you have both. If we insist that everyone be the same, think the same, or have the same background, diversity is less than it is already. Having rescue humans is useful in testing. And that would be a shame. I worked in one area where there was metadata, and I found very few bugs. The area was so stable, but one bug I found was in some cases the metadata would duplicate. And I was told no user would do that. And they said, well, can you think of a case where a user would do that? Where it would be so large it would be a problem. And I said, well, no, probably not off the top of my head right now. And so we shipped with that bug. one of the first customers we heard from had been embedding entire images in their metadata and now had giant files with all these duplicates in them, so we had to fix that bug. So what I've learned from that is we have no idea what no user would do. Users are weird. We can't predict what they'll do. They could do absolutely anything. So we have to be prepared for that. So just to summarize, my favorite things I've learned from cats are to survive by refusing to multitask, knowing your value, and filtering your input. Hunt as well as you can, using all the clues you possibly can, tools, your special vision, and have a laser-tight focus when you're isolating bugs. Don't be looking too narrow, broaden up later. Master communication by building relationships. And when you're building those relationships, try and learn what works. Spend your time around those who appreciate your voice, who let you be unique, and avoid dropping off grizzly dead mice. So find out what gifts your team values, send them more often. To optimize your surroundings, carve out your own safe space, whatever that looks like. You may not have an office, find a place you're comfortable, make it happen. Take plentiful breaks, give and accept positive feedback. Cats never doubt that they deserve petting. They just purr their appreciation. So this is the cat science for this talk, and I've posted these up on SlideShare, so you have them. And then I'm Lanette, and if you add me on Twitter, be prepared that I don't separate anything out. So if you just want to hear about cats or ask me a question, email is probably best. But thank you very much.